You recycle your plastic. They recycle it and they make plastic pellets and you can recreate new plastic. But there's no federal regulation for plastic recyclers. So at any point in time, any of the chemicals that they use in there could combust and who knows what will happen.
Who's your alderman, Solis or Chico?
Oh no, our alderman is Alderman Ricardo. So as you can tell, the lovely property is still empty after all these years because he refuses to do anything on it because he's mad. He doesn't like this. And I should probably preface to say that we put his beeper number on our flyers and then his cell phone number on our flyers and asked people to call him on a regular basis to tell him that we didn't want the company here. And so he yelled at us a lot.
When's the upper?
Well, back then it was his beeper number.
But you said it's...
He yelled at us.
Munoz?
Yeah, Munoz. Yeah. Yeah, he cornered us a block from our office, my boss and I. He pulled up on us and he was just like, "Oh, don't do it, how dare you put my page in there? My page has been blowing up." We were like, sorry. That's our job. So, I mean, basically our job is to get our public officials to do what they're supposed to. And if you make them angry in the process, well, you're doing your job. That's what I tell my staff all the time. If you piss somebody off, you're doing your job. We're going to have like that corner. We usually grow a lot of squash and cucumbers here. And then we have a variety of different things within the beds themselves. Anything from chiles, tomatoes, cilantro, I mean everything under the sun. And in that box right there with the black cup around it, we have worm composting. Our volunteers are very, very, very much into worm composting. And so we have, like, I don't even know how many thousands of worms at our other site that our folks, and this is actually their design. They built it so that the worms could stay out all winter but get sunlight and stay warm because we put them in our garage usually, but they didn't want to funnel them back and forth with the waste material that they use. And so this is our first year, well not my first year, but their first year trying out their experiment. So they actually custom built the bed frame, the worm bed themselves, and they're working on that right now. Gung-ho about their worm composting, but you guys can have a seat. So this is, I'm sure I think Howard might have talked to you about our conception as an organization, but this is a school where the parents originally organized around the retarring of the roof and the window replacement. And this is where our parents took a vote and the Joseph E. Gary Environmental Justice School project was born in this building. And then, so this is Gary and this is Dominguez. So the school that I talked about that was supposed to be built on that site, this is it. So what the parents ended up doing was this entire part of the space was actually all one park. There was a field house right in the middle and there was 2 fields on either side. And the parents voted to give up 3/4 of the park in order to have this school built. And so this school is only pre-K through 3rd grade only. And we were able to get this site, this part secured for a community garden. And then ideally, the gym is actually right in this door right here so that after school there could be programming for young people inside a gym. Unfortunately though, there's no funding, so it's not something that we use. But this was actually one of the first projects that I came on as an organizer because what ended up happening is they built this school and they left all the construction material on site. So they had these huge mounds of construction material that they just left here. And so I had to organize parents from both of the schools and advocate for them to come in and remove all the construction material and place sod and lighting and garbage can and benches on the site. But because of our relationship, unfortunately, with the alderman, it was very difficult to get him to kind of move the city to do the things that they needed to do. So for instance, when they sodded this park originally, they brought the sod out in October and they left it out here the whole winter and then they planted it in April. And so, as you can tell, it never really took because it was dead when they planted it. And so these are the kind of challenges that we face, unfortunately, with our local politicians. And so a lot of one of the differences that we have from a lot of organizations that people are like, well, you know, run a candidate or educate people on voting so that they can vote out this person. Well, the problem that we have with that is that it's much more than just about voting because most people in our neighborhood don't have a right to vote. And so we have no right to go and tell them, well, come out and vote when you don't have a right to vote. And so for people, the bigger issue over voting is the question of legalization and the question of immigration. And so that's a much more prominent issue for folks in coming out to vote. As I mentioned before, out of 95,000 people 4 years ago, only about 4,500 came out to vote. And that was it. I mean, voting is not something that people feel is, yeah, it's their right, but they don't feel it's an action that they can take to make change. The action that they take is speaking up and participating and getting their public official to do what they want. And so it's a very different structure in our neighborhood than other communities when it comes to fighting local authority. And in regards to gardens, as I mentioned before, we're not a food desert. You know, the reason that we do our food gardens, number one, is because it's a great tool for organizing members of our community with. Most people have gardens in our neighborhood, so it's a great conversation piece. But more importantly, because of the economy, a lot of people have to not buy fruits and vegetables anymore because they can't afford to. And so we work with them to do gardens here and gardens in their backyard so they can maintain a healthy lifestyle and eat fruits and vegetables. And also teach your children about eating fruits and vegetables. I mean, you'd be surprised how many of our young people, you know, when they eat chicken on a bone, they're surprised that it has bone in it because they're used to eating chicken nuggets. You know, when they see where a tomato comes from, they're surprised that it comes from the ground. You know, we don't live the way we used to. We're farmland. You know, it's not the same anymore. Our young people go to a store and they expect to see fruits and produce there. You know, and when their families can't buy them, what are they left eating? Ramen noodles, you know, powdery soft drinks, you know, sugary drinks. And so this is our way of getting our young people to know where their food comes from and eating healthy food as well.
Question, I'm sure there are many organizations like yours in the United States. Do you contact them, I don't know, Philadelphia, hey, I'm having this trouble here, what did you guys do?
Most definitely. So we are one of the, I think we are still the only Latino environmental justice organization in Illinois, and one of a handful in the Midwest. There's a couple in Minnesota that we know about. And so I should preface by saying that we didn't know that the work that we did when we first started was called environmental justice. It took the EPA coming out to deal with the issue of the school, telling us, oh, you guys are working on environmental justice. We're like, okay, thanks for letting us know. Don't really know what that means. And so it took us learning about what environmental justice was before we realized that we were doing the same thing. But we've been very diligent about reaching out to other organizations to ask for support, and we've been pretty successful at it. This last year, we are now a part of the National Advisory. Hold on, I'm trying to think what it stands for. National Environmental Justice Advisory Council for the White House. And so we're one of the only Midwest EJ organizations that actually sits on that panel. And so we make it a point to be a part of also the Environmental Justice Leadership Forum on Climate Change, which is it's like 20 different organizations that sit together and provide insight when asked and when not asked on things like the climate bill, and really pushing back on the Big Greens, the Sierra Club, and the Greenpeace and what they do and how we're very different from them. And so we do provide a lot of critical analysis to the climate movement on a national perspective. We've gone to climate negotiations in Copenhagen and in Cancun, not to negotiate, but to organize with folks outside the negotiations against the negotiations. And so this past Christmas, we sent a staff member and a board member down to Cancun to organize with other folks in Mexico that are fighting big agribusinesses and are dealing with environmental justice issues down there as well. Yeah, we definitely, and because everything that we do here has an effect, or has an effect here, what's happening internationally. And so we definitely make a lot of relationships between what's happening here and what's happening in Mexico primarily, with NAFTA, with jobs, with the economy, all those things. Any other questions? That is a beautiful dog, I'm sorry.
Right?
That dog is gorgeous.
It's huge.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us more about your local partnership?
Sure. So locally, we partner with. I'm sorry, that is an interesting mix of dogs. Locally, we partner with churches, other organizations that understand what we do. Not a lot of organizations understand what we do, and I should probably. I'm making a fool of myself. One of the other things that we are very different about is that we don't make it a point to stay on the good side of most public officials. So most folks know us as the organization that will call out the mayor, will call out the alderman, will call out the governor for a lot of different reasons. I don't make it a point to pretend to be nice with these people or pretend to be friends with these people, because I'm not. They're government officials and they work for us, and they constantly remind that. And so that pisses off a lot of people, because a lot of organizations are like, you got to stay in good graces with the mayor. You got to stay. I don't have to stay in good graces with anybody but my neighborhood. That's the only people that I need to stay in good graces with. If you're not doing your job and I have to go and call you out for it, then that's your fault, not mine. And so there's a lot of organizations who are put off by that, but there are a lot of organizations who respect us because of that. And so at the end of the day, I just want people to understand, especially our young people, to understand that we should not have to bow down to anybody. These are people who we voted in, and they have a responsibility to us as their constituents. And if they can't do it, then they need to get out and put in somebody who can. And if they can't do it, then we'll do it ourselves. And so I stand very, very true to that. And it's probably one of the things that separates us out from most organizations, is we have no problem calling an ace for an ace at any point in time. Of course, here, and then we have our front garden. But we literally, like I said, we literally work and live in the neighborhood. I live half a block that way. Our clean power organizer lives literally in the house right behind us. Other folks live in Pilsen, so most of our organizers come from within or near the neighborhood. But if you're in the neighborhood interviewing folks, you guys are always more than welcome to use our space. We have a bathroom, we have internet access, we have a really small office. I don't have an office, it's just a big open basement, and we all just have desks. Just so you know, it's not anything fancy. But something else to keep in mind too is that we actually sit on the gang boundary line, and so this side of the neighborhood is 2-6, that side of the neighborhood is at Kings, and so in the summertime you'll have them usually fighting literally right on this intersection right here. And so just try to be careful as you guys come through here. Please don't wear black and gold. Or black and beige. And so, but like I said, I mean, relatively speaking, it's a pretty safe neighborhood. I mean, obviously, if you see people running, we're on the same, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's common sense. But I mean, they're usually, I will say that we tend to come out here when stuff is happening and try to, move folks along and defuse the situation to the best of our ability. We don't call the cops usually, because these are young people who just don't have one around them. And so we talk to them a lot. We try to get them involved in our work. We try to give them something else to do besides what they're doing. Or just let them know to be respectful of the space that we have here and to do whatever it is they're doing someplace else. Because the problem is, what we realize is that most people don't engage our young people. They're not talking to them. And so if we're not talking to them, nobody's talking to them. And so that's really the role. But we're not going to ask you to take on that role. Please don't put yourself in that situation. If you fear, then for something, just wait in your car or come back another time, or just call and let us know and we can come out. Most of our neighbors all know us. We know most of the folks on both of these blocks, and so if you guys ever need anything, there's a space. Like I said, I live half a block away. Mostly everybody on this block knows who we are and what we do. Sure. So ION, yes, ION is our clean power organizer, IAN. Ion Bateri is our clean power organizer. Selene Gonzalez, do not call her Celine for the life of you. If you want to stay in good graces with her, do not call her Celine. Her name is Selene Gonzalez.
Don't call
Ian either. Yeah. Selene Gonzalez is our urban land organizer, along with Fermin Mesa. They're both our urban land organizers. Michael Petula is our public transit organizer, and you can call Mikey, and he speaks fluent Spanish. And Raquel Nunez is our youth organizer. So those are our 5 organizers that you guys will have the pleasure of meeting over the course of the next month. And Raquel is also my opposite, administrative assistant. So she wears 2 hats. She has to put up with me and also organizing.